Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've remarked recently that these are interesting times in which we live because, as you know, a window seat might not include a window. Boneless chicken might include bones. And fish and chips might not include chips. Except, I've also mentioned that these times in which we live, sometimes when the media shines a spotlight on something, good things happen. And so what happens when all of this stuff comes together? Because a couple days ago, I did a video about the restaurant where if you ordered fish and chips and you wanted chips, you had to order them extra somehow. They didn't cost extra, but you had to order them extra. And a lot of servers were unhappy, but as were a lot of customers, because the customers would yell at the servers, and it wasn't the servers' fault. So Dennis Beavers had sent me a note about that story that he ran in Kiplinger.com. And then after I put a video about it, I've been corresponding with him. And he kind of was poking a few people. I think he sent a note to somebody who runs like a fish and chips organization over there in England and asked them what they thought about such a thing. But he did also consult a couple other attorneys and consumer experts and so on. And he sent me a note last night who said, Steve, who says that journalism doesn't matter? It does. He then thanked a whole bunch of people, Steve, Eric, Stephen, Barth, Aaron, Tony, Stephen with a PH. Your analysis did the trick. Thanks so much. Here is the company's appropriate response below. And this is important because I said before that somebody somewhere made a decision that will default with no chips, and if people want the chips, we'll give them the chips. And I thought the amount of goodwill you're burning by doing it that way is not worth it, whatever you're saving. And it turns out that somebody at corporate got the memo. So we're talking about the California Fish Grill, the California Fish Grill. Now, I'll admit, I've never eaten there. And they wrote to Dennis Beaver, and Dennis sent this along to me, so I assume I can make a video. Hi, we are writing in regard to the recent column by Dennis Beaver surrounding our fish and chips. And they put fish and chips in quotes. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Our goal is to always provide as many choices as we can for our guests, but it appears that with our fish and chips, our customization options have inadvertently caused some confusion. Notice they're spinning it a little bit, but they're pointing out, hey, look, we're trying to give people more options. And okay, I'm listening. We really want to clear this up. Just like our grilled plates and taco combos, our fish and chips have always been offered with two sides. Our fish and chips have historically been offered with French fries and kale slaw. Keep in mind that what we call French fries, other people about the world call chips. Why? No one knows. But both sides can be swapped out for other choices if a guest chooses to do so. As mentioned, we can see how this can be misinterpreted. So we are making a few simple changes. Our fish and chips will now come standard with French fries and the choice of one additional side. So they're saying, look, the sides are always available, but somehow the memo wasn't getting through to the consumers. So instead of giving you fish and two sides, your choice, we'll give you fish and chips and one side, your choice, because that probably aligns better with what people are expecting when they order fish and chips. As you point out, so they're not saying, hey, you guys got this wrong, this is all on you guys, you guys are all wrong. No. As you point out, you expect fish and chips to have French fries. So this option will not be modifiable. If a guest is not a fan of French fries, they can order a soon-to-be-offered battered fish dish where they're able to choose any two sides so that everyone can make their meal exactly how they want. So when you look at the menu and are considering your choices, there's going to be battered fish or fish and chips, and you can order sides. But you don't get just a fish when you order fish and chips. Fish and chips will always include the chips. I mean, it sounds goofy depending on how you phrase it, but their solution is correct. If a guest is not a fan of French fries, they can order a soon-to-be-offered battered fish dish where they can then choose any two sides so that everyone can make their meal exactly how they want. And then they signed it off by saying, we hope this will bring clarity while still allowing our guests the flexibility and options they love. If possible, we'd love for you to update your piece to reflect these changes. And I'm assuming Dennis will do what he can at his end, and I'm doing what I can by putting up another video. So once again, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we hope this helps clear up any confusion going forward. And it's signed by the California Fish Grill team. So it's California Fish Grill, and corporations are big entities. They are run by people, but a lot of times there's a lot of people. There's committees, there's departments, there's divisions, there's division heads, there's egos. There's all kinds of stuff happening at corporations, okay? We've seen some corporations make crazy mistakes, okay? Ford Motor Company put the dual clutch transmission in cars they sold to the public, okay? Mistakes were made. But here, this one seemed odd, and I would have thought as a common sense thing that fish and chips, when you order fish and chips, you get fish, you get chips. And now I also can understand how they're saying, well, no, the fish comes with sides. Would you like sides? Okay, that's fine, but I don't think the average person would have gotten the fact that when you are asked what sides you want with your fish and chips, that you'd have to say chips to get chips with your fish and chips. And so I kind of understand what they're saying, but the interesting thing is that nothing happened until Dennis did his story, and he got a bunch of opinions from other people, and I did my video. And I'm not going to claim that my video did anything here. I have no idea to what we'll attribute this. Dennis had contacted them directly and said, do you guys want to comment on this? And instead of ignoring him, which many places have done in the past, I'm sure, instead of ignoring him, or instead of saying, what's wrong with you people? You can order sides, a side of chips, But I salute these people at the California Fish Grill for recognizing that there was a situation that led to much consternation. And Dennis, in his original piece, spoke to servers who worked at the restaurants, who told him off the record that they got yelled at about this, not by their bosses, but by the customers. And one of the servers, apparently, is a law student. And it can be one of those things where you're working so hard in your department at your corporation, and your job is to increase sales, increase profit margins, reduce costs on this, expand out whatever you're going to do market research, advertising, demographics. There's all kinds of stuff going on. But you got to remember that it all boils down to two things. One is getting the customer in the door. That's job number one. If the customers don't come in the door, ain't nothing going to happen. You're going out of business. You need customers to walk in the door. When the customer walks in the door, job number two, because job number one is getting them there, job number two is giving them an experience that will get them to come back. We've all had the experience where we went someplace, it went poorly, and we never went back. And I've mentioned before, I used to do talk show and radio years ago, and I used to routinely talk about how you vote with your wallet when it comes to being a consumer. Don't get me wrong, in elections, you go vote for politicians. Every day that you spend money, you make a choice. Where do you spend your money? And you vote with your wallet. And if you go in someplace and spend your money, think of that as a vote. If you get poor treatment, are you coming back? No. And you shouldn't go back, because that's how economics works. People make decisions based on what they perceive to be the value of these transactions. So there are so many restaurants to choose from out there. And I can tell you that I've worked in places before where there were 20 restaurants within 1 mile of where I worked. And there were some we went to all the time, and there were some we avoided because we had bad experiences, we got bad food, bad treatment, something bad happened. And we would never go back. And I've spoken to people in different industries, and one of the things that's remarkable is how somebody will be running a company with a lot of locations, spending tons of money on something, going, it's the weirdest thing. We can't get people to come back. Oh, then you need to examine it, not from your side of the counter, but from the other side of the counter. What's the experience of people who walk in for the first time and buy something? Is the experience good where they're going to come back? Because I assure you that the people who find themselves yelling at their servers saying, where are my chips? And the server says, oh, you were supposed to specify those differently. A lot of those people don't come back. And I've watched a lot of those TV shows where they rescue restaurants and they rescue bars and all that stuff. And one of the most amazing things you'll see is the host of the show will be interviewing a restaurant owner on a night that ought to be busy and the place is dead. And the host of the show goes, where's everybody? The guy goes, I don't know. Well, have you thought about where they all went? Yeah, we used to be really popular. Used to be. And they all disappeared. If you used to be really popular and people were coming in, you got job one taken care of. Job two is how do you get them to come back? There's something wrong with their experience. The food was bad. The service was bad. Prices are too high. Something changed. And so here, I've heard good things about the California Fish Grill and their food. I've heard very good things about it. I've had people tell me, Steve, have you ever eaten there? No, I have not. But they say, but the food is good. Okay, but there's this one oddball thing. You order fish and chips, and you don't get chips. And I understand the explanation. But this is a great example where I'm guessing that people at corporate hadn't gotten the feedback or hadn't understood the feedback where they said people are confused by our menu when they order fish and chips. People say, Steve, that's just one menu item. Just one menu item. Can it really? Yes, you know popular fish and chips are? I go to restaurants that serve a whole variety of foods, not just fish places. And I order fish and chips. I know the restaurants that have good fish and chips. I do. And I go there and I get the fish and chips. Guess what happens if they don't have good fish and chips? Well, I'll order something else. But if that's not good, I won't come back to a restaurant several times just to see if anything else in the menu is good. I know where the other good restaurants are. So I go here, I like it. I need a change. I'll go here, didn't like it, I just won't go back. And that's the thing about the restaurant industry. It's also true about the bar industry, is that usually there's so much competition that you can't risk having mistakes where people will walk in the door and never come back. It's death. It's going to kill a restaurant if that's the situation. I'm not saying that this one situation would have killed this restaurant, but I'm saying it's one of these things where ain't no good coming from this. You got to fix it. And they fixed it, and they stepped up, and they said, hey, you know something? Thank you for bringing this to our attention. That's the first sentence beyond the introduction. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. And then they said, here's the situation. We see how that can cause confusion. We're going to change it. Oh, my gosh. Sometimes good things can happen. Now all we got to do is get the airlines to recognize that window seats need to have windows, nearby. And maybe boneless chicken, someday they might get the bones out of it. Someday. A guy can dream, can't he? So there you go, Dennis. Thanks for the good work. Thanks to everybody else who helped out with this, including, I'm guessing, Steve, Eric, and Steven with a PH, Aaron and Tony. And me, I helped as well, I hope. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. It turns out the answer to my problems wasn't at the bottom of this pint of ice cream, but the important thing is that I tried.